Well, it's a dream to idolize someone and then ultimately get the opportunity to meet and develop a personal rapport with them. Mohnish Pabrai was one of the few who had a strong bond with the late Charlie Munger, who passed away last week. Well, thanks a lot, Mohnish, for joining in on the show to give us an insight into this very, very special bond you had with Mr. Munger. First up, tell us, how did this relationship start?
Well, the relationship started actually in 2009, about 14 years ago. And it was Warren Buffett who introduced us to Charlie. And I'd met Warren in 2008 because I'd bid for the charity lunch he has every year. And we won that year. And so he set us up to meet Charlie for lunch. And I had just expected that we would have lunch with Charlie and that'd be the end of that. But it ended up that that lunch led to a very nice, warm relationship with Charlie. I became a bridge partner of his. We used to play bridge on Fridays at the LA Country Club, probably around like 4 hours in the afternoon, and then an hour for lunch before that, and a lot of banter about all kinds of subjects. And usually every probably 2 or 3 months, Charlie had us come over for dinner to his place in LA. And so we had very wonderful evenings with him. In fact, my last one-on-one dinner with Charlie was exactly a month before he passed away. And it was a wonderful evening, and very engaged, and it was great.
I can see in your backdrop, what they meant to you in terms of learnings, in terms of this relationship as well. Tell us more about that. How did it develop in the first place? And what were the key learnings, maybe about life? And then we could get to markets as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Charlie, Charlie probably more than Warren is able to read people really well and really fast. And I think for whatever reason, I passed through his filters. And actually, many times when he would describe me to friends of his and so on, and I would get some of those kind of comments back, it was very accurate in terms of how he saw me. And so it was really surprising that really quickly he was able to figure out a lot of things about me, and had a keen interest in interacting. And I would say that both with Buffett and Munger, there's a lot in the public domain. We don't need to know them to learn from them. I think there's a lot we can learn from just with all the writings and videos and all of that. But I would say with Charlie, I learned a lot, not so much from what he said to me, even though there were many fascinating conversations. I learned from observing him. So he has 8 kids. He has a lot of in-laws, a lot of grandkids, even some great-grandkids. I had a lot of interaction with a lot of the family. And, the family is a spectrum, right? So there's people who are, there are all kinds of people in that group. And I saw that Charlie was able to finesse great relationships with all of them. And some of them I found, a bit odd or strange or something. And sometimes I would bring that up with Charlie. And he would say, yeah, I know, but, that's just life as we roll with it. And so I saw the way he finessed these relationships. I saw the way he was able to figure out different businesses and business leaders. He had a very deep love for Costco. We don't have Costco in India yet. They just entered China. Probably at some point they'll enter India. And probably at almost every dinner we had, probably at least 20, 30 minutes, would be some nuance of Costco that would come up. And it was a great business. And Charlie was a director for many decades. So there was a lot of learning there. In our last meeting, we actually discussed some stocks. And so we had a great discussion about some recent US positions I had taken, and just very engaged. And last several meetings, he would always complain that Berkshire has all this cash. They have a 157 billion in cash, all-time record, and they're not able to find much. The company is making 30, 40 billion a year, And so he'd always moan and groan saying, we have all this cash and we can't find opportunities. And I said, Charlie, you guys always had that problem, but you somehow or the other, every few years find some great deal. So I'm sure something will come along. So we had a lot of discussions about, people, psychology, different books. And sometimes I had personal issues, personal problems. And I brought those to Charlie, and really it was quite spectacular. So he was a very broad-based human, very broad-based thinker, probably the smartest person I've met. But the high IQ was coupled with a person who was maybe reading something like a couple of hundred books a year for maybe 6, 7, 8 decades. So, and the ability in his brain, the way he filed things away to kind of correlate different mental models. Like sometimes I'll bring up some issue with Dakshana, and before I finished a sentence, he's never been to India. He'd already kind of solved the issue, So just the speed of the way his brain processed was amazing to watch.
Well, and 100 books a year, that's telling you his will to learn as well at every stage. Mohnish, you have interacted with both of them, right? Charlie as well as Warren. They had a couple of healthy disagreements as well, maybe on the markets. Tell us a couple of those instances, if any, when both of them were not on the same page, two very, very bright minds, but some friendly banter, maybe a debate that you could recollect.
Yeah, Warren and Charlie said that they disagreed many times over the last, 60, 70 years of their friendship, but they never had an argument. It was a very good relationship. And, the big change Charlie caused in Warren was that Warren was a very diehard Ben Graham guy wanting to buy cheap assets, even if the quality wasn't that great. He was very focused on price. And Charlie convinced him that it was better to buy a great business at a fair price than a fair business at a great price. And this was a big transformation, a big moment for Warren. And the first time that happened was in 1972 when they bought See's Candy. And so they paid, multiples of book value for that. It was a great business. They paid about $25 million for it, and they've already collected since then about $2.5 billion in dividends from the company. The See's purchase led them to the Coke purchase. So Coke is a very large position for them. And in the late 80s, when they bought Coca-Cola, they put a quarter of the book value of Berkshire Hathaway into Coke. And they've continued from then, even the Apple purchase now. So basically, this transition was a very important transition. But there were many transitions that Warren made that would not have happened without Charlie. So if you take Charlie out of the picture, the market cap of Berkshire Hathaway, I would say, might be 1/100th of what it is today. So it's not of 700 billion. It might be less than 10 billion. So Warren would have been successful, but nothing like what happened. He also convinced Warren that once they bought a business, they should not and could not sell it because that would have an impact on future sellers. So sellers of businesses know that when they sell to Berkshire, it's a permanent deal. The business is not going to be shopped to private equity or resold or any of that. So that leads them to get deals that nobody else sees.
I love this one where Charlie said, there are 3 ways that a smart person can go broke: liquor, ladies, and leverage. What were your key learnings, from the interactions you had with him?
Well, one of the, so I think when you look at Charlie Munger at the Berkshire meeting or the other kind of public settings, you kind of get a persona which is kind of like a wisecrack, someone who kind of has these zingers and one-liners and so on. And when I interacted with Charlie one-on-one, what I found is that inside that cold exterior was a very, very warm person. Same with Warren. And I think both of them had this hard exterior because they have to protect themselves. They're in the world and so on. But once you get past that exterior, very warm, kind soul, and someone with a very high degree of empathy. So basically, he was extremely good at investing. He was great at architecture. He was really good at understanding humans. He was interested in the humans. Like he would ask me a lot of questions about the Dakshina scholars, about the female scholars we had, and kind of their life trajectory. Just very engaged on a human level. So almost till the end, he traveled by coach. So Berkshire Hathaway owns NetJets, which is a fractional jet ownership, private jets. But Charlie liked to travel by coach economy. And he did that because he said he did not want to lose the common touch. He wanted to keep interacting with Joe Public. So sometimes he would go for a Costco board meeting. He'd be on a Southwest Airlines flight, back of the plane, middle seat. He's a big guy, squished in. He had a book with him. He really didn't care. It was irrelevant. And he would take an interest in the people on both sides. In many ways, he was a modern Ben Franklin. I think the closest person to Charlie was Ben Franklin. And the United States, out of all the founding fathers, the United States actually would not exist if Ben Franklin did not exist. So he had a huge impact on the formation of the country, and very unusual guy. And there were a lot of similarities between Charlie and Ben Franklin.
Well, Mohnish, you mentioned, at Dakshina Foundation as well, you've had a hall that's named after Mr. Munger. Tell us the backstory on that.
Yeah, we have the Charles T. Munger Hall in Bengaluru. It's near the airport. So if your listeners anytime want to go visit it, I think you'll have a great time. I think maybe it was 2013 or something where I wrote to Charlie saying that, look, want to name this hall after him. And I just wanted to I didn't want to do it without him giving an okay. So he said, well, it's a strange request and kind of bizarre. He never wanted his name in lights. He wasn't an ego guy or anything. But he said, you can go ahead. And he says something good might come of it. And actually the kids there played a wonderful tribute to him on the day he died. And I always get questions when I interact with the Dakshina kids, who is Charlie Munger? And it provokes a great conversation. It helps them learn more about him. And I think anything I can do to help people learn or know about Charlie is going to improve their lives. So it's been wonderful to have that.
Well, time to slip into a short break. We'll be back in a flash and we'll continue this conversation with Mr. Pabrai.